Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Jacksonville Jaguars Insider Podcast. My name is John Shipley. I am your host and beat reporter. And today's episode of the Jacksonville Jaguars Insider Podcast is all about Jacksonville Jaguars right tackle Anton Harrison and his fifth-year option. Now, Jacksonville Jaguars General Manager James Gladstone said this week at the annual league meetings in Phoenix that the Jaguars will accept Anton Harrison's fifth-year option before the May deadline. Now, by doing so, this guarantees, Harrison to be on the roster in 2027. Of course, other members of the 2023 draft class, namely Parker Washington, Antonio Johnson, and Brendan Strange, are set to enter contract years. But since Harrison was a first-round pick, the Jaguars get that option year to kind of, manage. And the way you can look at it is, so that money, it's $19 million, at least projected to be. That is all, guaranteed. That is what the, cap hit will be. It will obviously be the most money he's made, but this year his cap hit's around $4 million. So $23 million cap hit over 2 years for Anton Harrison at right tackle. So, really that's $11.5 million per year over the next 2 years is one way to look at it. So, $11.5 million per year. Just compare that to other, right tackles, and it's really nothing. It's a little more than Terrence Steele mixed with the Cowboys. Penei Sewell makes more. Lane Johnson clearly makes more. Titus Howard, that's three guys right there. Luka Decky, 4. Taylor Moton, Zach Tom, Mike Owenu, Brian O'Neill, Spencer Brown, Mike McClenny. That's 10 right there. And then you have Abraham Lucas, Caleb McGarry, Colton McKivitz, Jermaine Illuminor, and then Terrence Steele. About 15 guys. He'd make more money than Braden Smith, would in terms of average annual money. But essentially for the next 2 years, he's like the 16th, 17th, most investment in a right tackle on a per year basis. That's an easy decision to make. I've said before that this is probably one of the easier decisions that Cohen and Gladstone and the Jaguars front office really have to make of this entire regime. I think that obviously for the Jaguars, this wasn't always locked in to be the case when they first got here. Everybody should remember that the way the Jaguars talked about Harrison when Cohen and his regime first got here, I remember specifically. Cohen said when Anton wants to go, he can really go. And it was the way he said it. And it was clear. He was saying Anton's a really good football player when Anton Harrison wants to be, which is him saying, why is that the case? Anton should always want to be a good football player. And I don't think it was a case of like Anton was seen as lazy or anything like that by the pass regime. But I do think that just because of his physical traits, there's always been another level for him to hit. And that Cohen, being an offensive mind, probably, sees that talent in him, especially, as an offensive tackle, and thinks, there's could be something special here, but you have to get it out of him. And to the Jaguars' credit, they got it out of Harrison. They pushed the right buttons. They pulled the right levers. Cohen's plan with Harrison worked. And I think credit has to go to Harrison because he's not the only Jaguar they challenged last year. Several other Jaguars were challenged last year who didn't last very long with the team. Fred Johnson, Tank Bigsby. There are others. It was very clear that with this new regime, it was their way or the highway. Get on board or find a different ship. Most of those, I'll take that back. I wouldn't say most. Because Anton isn't the only one who met the challenge. I'd say Travis Etienne did. I'd say Devin Lloyd did. I'd say even to a degree, Antonio Johnson did. So far from the only player who had to meet, those challenges, who had to answer the call when Liam Cohen and the Jaguars demanded excellence. But for several players, they went the other direction. So I think obviously some credit has to go to Harrison there. Now, I asked him, about how much better Harrison can get. He said, still a lot. Cohen said, quote, "I was pleased with his response to our arrival and some of those challenges that went with a few of those first few months specifically. And as we went throughout the season on a week in and week out basis, but there's not a lot he can't do athletically and physically. So I think that he is seeing a little bit more of the vision and pathway of, man, I could do this for a long time and at a high level and make a lot of good money and help a team try to win as much as humanly possible. And hopefully we can take another step of that progression and that mindset and mentality this year and see an even better version of Anton as we continue to see." In short, Cohen is saying, he had a great year. And he is in a situation now where he has to realize, and he clearly has, that if he keeps this up, he has a big payday in order. I mean, several right tackles are making $20 million a year. That $19 million 5th-year option would be, just below that. He could be one of the highest paid right tackles in football in the span of a few short years. Now, should the Jaguars try to extend him now? I don't think so. I think, like I said, let him play on the 5th-year option. Maybe try to work out a deal as he's on the 5th-year option, kind of similar to what they're doing with Trayvon Walker right now. But to me, because you have that option year, because you have that little bit of leeway and cushion, you can probably prioritize Parker Washington. You can probably prioritize Brendan Strange. Obviously, Trayvon Walker is near at the very top of the priority list. Even Antonio Johnson, to a degree, you could probably maybe prioritize him before paying Anton just because you have the option and you have that flexibility. I think that, for Harrison, this was a move that was always coming. So it's not like it's a surprise or anything, but there was a real chance when this staff got here, if he had handled the challenges a different way, if he took it personal, anything like that, I could have seen them trading him. I can tell you for a fact, I won't say the team, but one AFC team that was on the Jaguars schedule last year wanted Harrison bad. He was never available, but they had serious interest in him. It's an AFC team the Jaguars played with a lot of offensive line issues. I'll leave it at that. Not the Texans, because obviously the Jaguars wouldn't trade Anton Harrison to the Texans. You'll trade like a late stage Christian Kirk to the Texans for a 7th-round pick. You're not trading an Anton Harrison. But Anton is somebody who, after a strong rookie season, definitely did take a step back in 2024. Definitely did have to improve. But I think that you saw that improvement. I think, as Cohen said, you see the light coming on, and you see Anton probably realizes there is a path toward being a very highly compensated player for his talents. And he's a key piece of what the Jaguars are doing in the screen game, in the run game, in pass pro. He's their best one-on-one pass blocker, I'd say easily. The things he does in space that the Jaguars were able to get out of him last year. He was demolishing guys. It's a hat tip to them for developing him. Obviously, he was a great draft pick by Trent Baalke. It's pretty clear that Baalke had a number of draft hits. I think his bigger issues are probably in free agency and just, I wouldn't even say personnel. I'd say personnel, Eddie, probably. And just how the ultimate culture of the franchise was. But he drafted some good players. Anton Harrison's right at the top of that list. And it's very clear that Anton Harrison is going to be in Jacksonville for some time to come. And as he should be. because he's earned that right after what he did last season.